came back into the market in a very big way.
What we know now is Wall Street can bring down Main Street.
People are seeing this, and those memories of fear are coming back.
When you have a 401k or a 403b, those kinds of accounts, they are incredibly susceptible to downturns.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 900 points. More than 900 points.
There are questions about how to best save for retirement.
Part of the problem is confusion.
Time keeps on slipping into the future.
The first rule in investment is don't lose. And the second rule in investment is don't forget the first rule. And that's all the rules there are.
When the market goes up, you go up. When the market goes down, you don't go down. Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
Welcome to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole. Brad is a retirement and income specialist, primarily serving Springfield, but he's sought after nationally for his expertise in helping people secure their retirements. Mr. Pistole is a licensed life insurance professional in the states of Missouri, Arkansas, and Kansas, and he specializes in working with people who are near retirement and those who have already retired with wealth management, income planning, and asset protection strategies.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
And now, here to talk with you about securing your retirement, your host, Brad Pistole.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us for Safe Money Radio. You might be listening on the radio right now, but if you are, I just want to tell you this is a very special episode today. This is actually going to be a podcast. You'll be able to watch this. So if you're hearing it on the radio, just know you can go to YouTube later and you can watch this online. And why is this a special day? Well, if you're watching, you already know, because I have someone here, a good friend with me, first time ever in Springfield, Missouri.
Yep.
First time ever in Springfield, all the way from North Carolina. Now, if you're watching, you may recognize the name on the video because it's going to say Kevin Lynch. But if you're seeing it, you may think, well, that's not Kevin Lynch because I've seen him on here with Brad before, and he had a big, long Duck Dynasty beard, right?
Yes, I did.
And it's gone. He's clean. He got retired, and he's clean shaven now. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Brad, I'm honored to be here. It's a pleasure, and we're having a good time here in Branson. We're down in Branson having a ball.
Well, for those of you who have experienced this, now if you're somewhere else listening, I know we have listeners all across the world, but Kevin's going to do some really special things. He flew in to Branson, and he's been here for a day or two, but he is going to, right after this podcast, go to the world famous Lambert's restaurant, going to have the rolls thrown at him. He has no clue what's coming. Then he's going to Bass Pro. Now, when people say they've been to Bass Pro, I'll say, have you been to Springfield, Missouri's Bass Pro? No, then you haven't been to the real Bass Pro, where it all started. And he's going to get to go up into the number one in the world famous aquarium, Wonders of Wildlife Museum. We're just going to have a blast today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So if you're just now joining us for the first time, hey, maybe this is the first time you've ever listened to Safe Money Radio. We've been on for 15 years. We're the longest running financial planning show in the Ozark by about 13 years. So we are just so thrilled to always be bringing to you cutting edge information regarding retirement planning. And that's what we're going to be doing today, using one of the best in the business. So Kevin, this is what I would love to do, even though I know it's a little bit of a repeat of our first show, but tell everyone, how in the world did we even meet? You're in North Carolina. I'm in Springfield. How did we even meet each other?
Well, the last 15 years of my working career, I was a college professor, and being a person who was used to doing research and before I make decisions, making sure that I've looked at all possible sides of every consideration, I started reading retirement books in anticipation of retiring. And I came across your two books in my search for all these different pieces of information about how best to retire and what your purpose is going to be and so on and so forth. Like most people, I focused on the financial part, the money part. And I pretty much had that figured out. I've been teaching this for 15 years. So financial planning, retirement planning, those kind of programs I was familiar with. But always looking for a new source, I found your book, both of them actually. But in one of the books, I discovered this process or this thought process that you practice under, which you call the Sleep Well at Night, SWAN. And like I invented it. I didn't really, but it occurred to me, wow, that's like a duck that floats. That's one of those fancy ducks.
like the swan behind
like
us.
the swan behind us. And that's where that came from when I got that idea. And but really what the real teachings that I got, the real information was the understanding of where annuities fit in a retirement plan. And two schools of thought. One school, you don't need annuities. You can, take percentages, safe percentages out of your investments. That is the non-guaranteed your retirement.
Right.
The other school of thought, which is the one I adopted, and since I wrote a textbook on annuities and I've been teaching about this for so long, I had the information, but now I had the practical application because I used myself. Yeah. So that's sort of how I found Brad. He's the annuity guy. He knows all this stuff. I knew that everything he wrote in his book was absolutely correct because I wrote the textbook and it's the same thing I said. But again, it's different when you're academically considering something and when it's your money and you're making sure that you don't run out during your lifetime. So anyway, that's how I found you. I found your work first. Of course, then I met you second.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I had the opportunity to do that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Because now people that are listening are like, well, now what do you mean you taught that? Well, we can see on your shirt. Oh, you've got the American College of Financial Services shirt on.
I retired from the American College of Financial Services. I joined them way back in 2009. And again, I just retired in January of 2024. And I had actually been at the college 1 year prior to that, back in 2005.
Okay.
But back then I was there in the capacity of, I was an associate vice president of basically the alumni association, the giving arm, the solicitation for funds and so forth. That's what I did back in the day. And unfortunately, my house never sold. So I was living in Pennsylvania. My wife was back in Texas, and I'd rather be with my wife because I can always find a new job.
Right.
So I went back home. But then a number of years later, the opportunity presented itself to be a faculty member, which of course had always been my life's ambition anyway. So I was able to join the college back in 2009, and I spent another 14 wonderful years there, basically in the CFP, CLU, CHFC, and the RICP program, the Retirement Income Certified Professional. And that's another thing that drew me to Brad, because he holds that professional designation from my institution. So not only did I know his book was right, I knew he had been trained correctly.
Right. Well, I'll leave that with us before we take a quick break. I'll say this. If those of you that are listening or watching the podcast know that he's colleagues with Dr. Wade Fowle, Dr. Michael Finca, many other people we've had as guests on the show, knowing Ed Slott, David Blanchett, all these other people. So in the same school of thought, the same expertise, you're talking about experts that honestly, they've all forgotten more than I will ever know about this stuff. I will never forget the first email that he sent me. I got it on a Sunday afternoon. I read it and I looked and I saw the cell phone number and I thought, well, this guy's calling me from Texas. I'm licensed in Texas, but I emailed back and said, now, I'm in Springfield, Missouri, right? I just want to make sure you didn't think I was local to you. He said, that's okay. I don't even live in Texas. I live in North Carolina. I thought, well, that's even further away. But when I read his signature line, I noticed something right off the bat. I have 3 financial designations. I'm a CFF, I'm an RICP, I'm a CAS, and I have my association with the Ed Slott Group for 15 years. I'm pretty dang proud of all 4 of those. This guy's got 23 different financial designations, including his CFP.
Yeah, but remember now, you got to remember, folks, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I study. I enjoy that. To me, those were fun for me. Many people look at it as work. I looked at it as just enjoyment and fun.
It seems like every week, Kevin's got another financial designation he's got now. So
I'm retired now, no more.
So if you're just now joining us, I just want to say we always offer this. You can call us anytime. 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Kevin's going to be on the show all day today. We're going to be talking about things that you need to know regarding your retirement income plan. So call us anytime if you want a free consultation or if you want to read a copy of the books Kevin talked about. Bulletproof, the Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. Just call us. I'll give you a copy free. 866-780-7233. So here we are with my good friend Kevin Lynch, all the way from North Carolina, joining us on the show today. And Kevin, let's do this. I put a couple of things on the wall behind us. I've got the Swan back here we're going to talk more about, which was a gift from Kevin, and I did not know it at the time. And then we have this copy back here behind Kevin. I know it's kind of blurred out behind us, but it's a copy of the Wall Street Journal that we were actually able to be in together in January of 2024. I got an email from Ed Slott, and he was like, hey, the Wall Street Journal's wanting to do some interviews with people regarding required minimum distributions and how, because of the run up in the market and how well the market's done, how that means larger RMDs. So sometimes, even though you feel good about how good your brokerage account may be doing or your retirement account, that also means your required minimum distribution is going to be more because it's based on your 12/31 balance, December the 31st balance every year. And so when I saw that, I thought, boy, do I not only want to jump on this, but I know the perfect person to interview, because Kevin was within 3 weeks of retirement.
And I had no less than 2 weeks prior to this, we had been on the phone because I owned annuities now. One of them was funded with IRA dollars, and I knew I had an RMD that was going to be required. Now, I wasn't going to take it from the annuity product, but I had to know the amount so I could take it from another IRA that I had, along with the RMD from that one. So we had just been talking about this, and then he sends me an email wanting to know, are you available to speak to the so-and-so from the Wall Street Journal? I said, well, for you, I am, sure. I'm retiring in 3 days, but I'll do it.
And to tell you how good this guy is, the Wall Street Journal, the person who wrote the article, they've sent back and said, anytime you ever think that an article I'm going to do would involve Kevin, I would love to talk to him. He was fantastic. So lo and behold, here it is, the Wall Street Journal from January. And we had no clue it was going to happen, but I actually was flying to New York City to speak for Tom Hegna on an episode of his brand new show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which is now online also. And I flew in on the day that our article was in the Wall Street Journal. So I bought a copy in New York City and had it with me, which Kevin's going to get a copy of today. I bought extra copies. So just super cool, the timing and the way the Lord worked and all that to bring all that together. Yeah. So here's what I want to do. I want to talk a little bit about that Wall Street Journal article, because a lot of our listeners right now, if they aren't experiencing RMDs, they keep hearing about these RMDs, required minimum distributions. And it's so confusing because we used to have one age and now we've got four. There's 70 and a half. There's age 72. There's now age 73. And for anyone born in 1960 or later, it's going to be age 75. Unless they change it between now and then, and they probably will. But tell us, Kevin, what is a required minimum distribution? What does that even mean?
Well, most Americans who save for retirement do so in what we call a qualified account, like an IRA or a 403B or a 401k. All these numbers are simply IRS code numbers.
Yes.
And if you have put money away in a qualified account, that means you didn't pay taxes before the money went in. Well, the IRS rather, is a very forgiving group, and they're going to wait a while.
Right.
But they've decided that eventually they want their tax money. So they created what are called required minimum distributions. So if you have an IRA, for example, and you reach, in my case, it was 70 and a half. Well, then that law changed to 72.
Right.
So at 70 and a half, you used to have to start taking RMDs. That was moved to 72 in my case. But then right when I did my first one, it changed to 73. So it never benefited me personally. But today, you don't have to take your first required minimum distribution until you're 73 years old.
Right.
Now, Brad mentioned 4 different ages. There's still an important part about the 70 and a half.
Yes.
At 70 and a half, you can elect to take a required distribution, but you can do it using another tool called a qualified distribution to take the required distribution, not have to claim it on your taxes at income if you make a donation, if you give it to charity and it's a recognized authorized charity. They call those QCDs. Okay.
Right.
So you have RMDs that you can turn into QCDs.
That's right.
But back to the main point. And in the article that Brad mentioned, there was a discussion of RMDs and QCDs. So you'll see that in the article. But basically, RMDs are the IRS requiring you to start taking amounts from your savings at a certain age and in certain pre-published, already established amounts.
Right.
For example, this year I think I'm remembering, I'm going to be 74 in October. 12/31, they'll look at my IRAs. That'll determine the value. And I will have to multiply that for this year to pay next April. I believe it's 25.5.
Yes.
So you take your dollar amount, you divide it by 24.5, whatever the answer is, send them a check.
Yep. There's the uniform lifetime table.
That's
we keep
right.
the chart that tells us what the ratio is based on your age.
And it's published, it's online. It doesn't change unless the law changes. So
right.
It's once I print it out, put a copy in the drawer, be ready.
Right. And let everyone know, because this is what's important for those that are just now hearing about RMDs. Are those distributions taxable to you?
Absolutely.
They are.
Because remember, the money went in without any tax.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes out, now's the time that you pay the tax. And again, I don't want to get into Brad's area of specialty and Ed Slott's specialty, but I can't say the word RMD and think about the fact that those of us who have had IRAs and 403Bs and 401Ks, I heard a phrase recently, part of it is yours, but the rest of it is an IOU to the IRS.
That's it. So whenever you use the word theirs, okay, part of it is yours, part of it is theirs. What is THEIRS? That is the dash IRS, right? So it's an IOU to the IRS.
Yeah.
So just don't ever get fooled. I will say this, especially if you're a young person listening, if you're in your 20s, you just got your first job, you've graduated from college, and everyone's going to tell you about this amazing thing called the 401k, and you're going to get free money and you've got to sign up for it. A lot of that's true, but just keep in mind, when you made those contributions from your payroll into that account and you didn't pay the taxes, you deferred the tax.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get away with it. You kicked the can down the road. And remember, in the future, Uncle Sam will be waiting. Mm-hmm. If you live long enough to get to the required minimum distribution age, his hand's going to be out and he's going to say, you've got to take it. And here's how much you have to take. And here's how much tax you have to take. And a whole other show, but I say this all the time. Remember, that taxable distribution goes on top of your spouse's required minimum distribution, and it takes into consideration both of your Social Security paychecks and whether or not you have pensions, and that can affect your IRMA surtax for Medicare. It's a big deal, and that's why we did the article with the Wall Street Journal about how to plan for your required minimum distributions. And especially, I love what Kevin said, taking a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution, and giving it away to a charity, because guess what? You left Uncle Sam on the bench completely when you did that.
Yep.
You took a tax deduction up front. You gave it to your church or a charity on the back end. Uncle Sam got nothing from that. So if you weren't charitably inclined before, when you find out how much tax you might be paying on your RMD, you might become charitably inclined.
You might be. That's right. It might all of a sudden occur to you, hey, this is a good idea.
Right. Okay, Kevin. Now, I know when we were talking about the Wall Street Journal article, part of what you talked to them about was you have some RMDs, but on part of your accounts, you don't have RMDs. How can you avoid having an RMD on a retirement account?
Well, when I decided that I was going to have a portion of my portfolio in what we call safe money or guaranteed income streams, the answer, of course, was annuities. Well, you can fund annuities with different buckets of money.
Yes.
And depending on which bucket of money you take from to buy the annuity is whether or not it will be taxable. For example, you've got a brokerage account. These are taxable dollars. Every year you get a 1099 and you have to list it. Well, that bucket of money is not taxed as income, but it's taxed as capital gains. So if you fund an annuity using brokerage money, they have the exclusion ratio. And folks, like Brad said, we're using terms that we're very familiar with. You may not be familiar with them. That's why he gives you the number to call, because anything we're talking about, he can explain in detail. But basically what happens is you use after-tax dollars, you buy an annuity. The IRS realizes, hey, that money's already been taxed, so we're not going to tax you on that portion. We're only going to tax the growth portion. Well, the annuities that I have, I bought a number of them with Roth dollars.
Okay.
Roth IRAs, you pay the money up front for the benefit of getting the income tax free.
Yes.
So that's always your choice, folks. And like he mentioned, if you're a young person and you're just starting out, absolutely look at the 401k, absolutely look at IRAs, but look for the Roth option, because what you can do is you can forego the small benefit of reduced income today. You can let that go. You can bypass. later, when it has grown, you'll have the ability to get all that money back income tax free. And that's what I did. I funded a number of annuities with Roth dollars, and I funded one annuity with my traditional IRA dollars.
So RMDs on the traditional, but no
RMDs on the Roth. That's exactly right.
Completely tax-free income, and Uncle Sam is not in control of telling you when to take it out.
That is correct.
Well, I think I'm going to use an example. Again, 5 radio shows a week for 15 years. I don't remember exactly, but I don't think I've ever used this example on the show before. So to illustrate what Kevin's saying, for those of you that are watching, I'll say this. And I would love to give credit to where I heard the story, but I can't remember. We were talking this morning about what we can't remember.
Yep.
I bought a book this last week that says, "This is my journal. I'm too old to remember these things, so I have to write them down." Right. So here's the story. You go into a store, you're a farmer, you go into a store and you want to plant some trees, and you pick up 2 different types of oak seeds. And when you walk up to the front for the oak seed to plant the tree, the guy at the register says, "Hey, I tell you what, I'm going to give you 2 options today. On these seeds, you could pay the tax now. And on these, you could not pay the tax now. Which one would you rather do?" Like, well, I don't know. Well, obviously I would rather not pay the tax now, right? But there's a catch. On the ones that you don't pay the tax on now, you can plant that tree, but all of the growth of that tree, whenever you decide to harvest it on down the road, all the growth of that, you're going to have to pay the tax on all of that, all at that time. No tax today, but whatever it grows to, when you cut the tree down, you got to pay tax on all of it. Mm-hmm. On the one that you do pay the tax on today, when you plant that seed and that tree grows, when you harvest it in the future, there is no tax. No matter what the tax rates are, you can cut that tree down, sell all that wood for no tax. Now, which one would you rather do? And I just think about it and go, man, I would much rather pay tax on the seed than on the harvest. Yes.
Yep.
And when you put money into a tax deferred account, you are saying, I don't want to pay you today. I'll let that tree grow into this gigantic, massive tree. And then when I cut it down and I need it for income, I'm going to have to pay tax on all that at whatever rate you say. And well, I don't know. I like to pay the seed up front, the tax up front.
You know, there's a lot of conversation with a lot of professionals, and there's different opinions. And folks, it's your decision, and it obviously should be made with what's best for you at the time that you're making the decision. But given the option of foregoing a small tax benefit today in favor of a very large tax benefit in the future, you know, Brad knows this, and people who know me, I was an early adapter on the computer. I bought my first one back in 1986.
Wow.
And I've been online for many, many years. And my email address, my very first one, which I've had now since the mid 80s, because I've always been in finance. My email address is saveforlater@aol.com. So I've always wanted to encourage people to save for later. But back in 1986, Roths hadn't been invented yet.
They didn't exist.
They didn't exist yet. So my save for later was always intended to remind my clients that the important thing to do is save for later. Now today you can do it tax deferred,
right?
Or you can do it for tax free later on.
Right.
Pick the one that works best for you, but do it with knowledge and education. Talk to people like Brad specifically, because I'm retired now, so don't call me. But
call me and I'll ask Kevin.
Call Brad. He'll help you. But the bottom line is, I want to encourage everyone to take advantage of any opportunity they have to save. But just realize, if you're deferring, you're, quote, kicking the can down the road, or you're going to pay for the harvest rather than the seed. So keep that in mind. And if you have the opportunity to delay, to defer to make the decision not to defer.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend. But since I don't know you personally, that is not investment advice, because we have not spoken in person.
That's right. Well, I would just say this. So the good book says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Mm-hmm. So regarding saving for the future, make sure that you have some vision for the future. If you take the tax deduction now, just know you're going to owe it on the back end. And if you decide to pay the tax now, you won't owe any in the future. But just remember this, we are almost $35 trillion in debt. That is $1 trillion every 100 days. Do you think taxes are going to go down in the future? I do not think so, my friend. So just make sure you have vision regarding the future, regarding your tax planning. All right.
You know how you can prove that?
How's that?
That you're right? go to Las Vegas and see if anybody will take a bet on taxes are going to be lower in the future versus taxes are going to be higher in the future, and you'll get your answer.
Yeah, you will, for sure.
The bookies will tell you.
That's right. That's a good point. Hey, we're only about halfway through the show. We're going to talk about 3 big things the remainder of the show. But if you want more information, call us anytime. If you want a copy of my book, I'll give it to you free. 866-780-SAFE, 866-780-7233. This is Brad Pistole, your host of Safe Money Radio. I'll be right back after this informative message.
Safe Money Radio. Now back to more Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole.
Welcome back to Safe Money Radio. I'm Brad Pistole, a certified financial fiduciary and a safe money retirement specialist. Friends, if you're just now joining us, we're going to be talking with Kevin Lynch, retired professor from the American College, visiting us in the Ozarks for the first time ever today. And I want to talk about something we don't talk about a lot on the show, but we've had Dr. Wade Fowle on the show talking about his book regarding reverse mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
I have a new guest that's going to be on in a couple of weeks talking more about it. Tell us about, you have a HELOC, right?
No, actually, I have a reverse mortgage.
Oh, you have a reverse mortgage.
Yes,
So
I do.
tell us why you have a reverse mortgage.
I will.
And
It's funny.
share. Yeah.
I had met Wade,
Okay.
and I had read his work.
Okay.
And when I was anticipating retiring, I was originally going to retire in 2020. And of course, COVID came and all that happened. But
Right.
in 2018, my wife and I were thinking about retirement. We were going to build our retirement home. My stepfather was still alive at that time. And we built a special home with no steps, no carpet, very flat. All the doors were wide in case my dad ever needed a wheelchair.
Yeah.
At the time, he was in assisted living. And the home we lived in was inappropriate. It was stairs and it was skinny and old and he couldn't get around.
Yeah.
So we built this house hoping to bring my dad home to live with us the last few years of his life. He was with us his last 6 years, but the last year, the 7th year, he was actually in assisted living.
Okay.
So long story short, I discovered what was known as a HECM, which is a form of a reverse mortgage, but it was called HECM for purchase.
Okay.
So instead of having a paid for house and getting a reverse mortgage to pay me income, I wrote a giant check up front and I bought a home that all the other aspects of the reverse mortgage are in place. No payments for the rest of your life as long as your wife and one of you live there. You have to pay your taxes every year and keep it insured. But other than that, you have no mortgage obligation.
Okay.
The other example, or the opposite of that, or another consideration, would be what they call the HELOC, or the home equity line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the home equity line of credit is also a feature of some reverse mortgages. The one I have, for example, is that after putting the big check down a couple of years later, I decided, because reverse mortgages by law, whatever interest rate they charge you, the line of credit has to be given the same rate of credit.
Okay.
So I had a reverse mortgage. The rate went up to 7% when the mortgages went crazy. Well, it dawned on me, I had all this money in a brokerage account. If I were to move that money and prepay my mortgage, bringing the line of credit very high, I'd be earning 7% on my own money.
Right.
So I took the money, I paid the capital gains, I put it back into my reverse mortgage, where I now have a line of credit in a substantial amount, which again is what? Income tax free, suitable for me at my discretion whenever I choose.
Making 7%.
Making right now, well, this month it's 7.01. It's actually been as high as 7.25 in the last year.
Okay.
And I'll finish this part of the story with this little piece of information. As I got ready to retire, I had a vehicle that was leased that was going to be coming up at the end of the lease. And I decided I want to be truly debt free.
Yeah.
So I took some money out of my line of credit, income tax free, paid cash for my vehicle. So I then entered in retirement with no debt at all, no consumer debt at all, with my reverse mortgage in place, with a huge line of credit available to me at my discretion. I didn't have to ask anybody's permission. And it's just it's another tool in your toolbox for retirement if it's appropriate for you. Now, a lot of people, you hear a lot of negative things about reverse mortgages, but I would ask you to consider the source.
Yeah.
Because you don't hear negative things about Wade when Dr. Wade Pfau writes books and explains how it works and why it makes sense in your case. You never hear anybody talking about that.
Right.
It's always the people who don't have the option to earn anything by you having a reverse mortgage who tend to be negative about them. And I'll be as nice as I can be and just leave it there.
There's always a motivation for why you hear never buy an annuity. No. Don't get a reverse mortgage. They're terrible. There's a motivation, and it means money in their pocket. So,
or the lack thereof.
They want more of it. That's right. So if you just heard this part and you're like, whoa, I couldn't have heard that. There's no way I heard that correctly. Back up. Let me rewind. Well, the nice thing is this is on YouTube. You can rewind and watch it as much as you want to. But I'll just say this, 23 different financial designations, a professor at the American College, now retired and enjoying vacation here in Springfield. They are the experts in this. They're retirement income certified professionals. They know how to use every single tool in the toolkit. Mm-hmm. If you have this tool belt on, it's got all these tools on it, but you don't know how to use them, it's just a lot of extra weight doing you no good. Or if you have a tool belt on and it's empty and there's only a screwdriver and a hammer in it, then you've left a whole bunch of tools out that you could have used. So that's what we're trying to do, is just educate you regarding all the different options that are out there for your retirement income plan. And for many people, as Dr. Wade Pfau will say, you need to get Dr. Wade Pfau's book regarding this, and that's PFAU, Dr. Wade Pfau. Regarding reverse mortgages, make sure you use all the tools in your toolkit when it comes to your retirement income, because Roths aren't the only tax-free form of income.
That's right.
There's also using one of the largest assets. Most of you, it is your largest asset. It's your home.
Your home.
Okay. So if you want more information, call us anytime at 866-780-7233. And in our last couple of segments, we're going to talk about a couple of more tools in your toolkit that will help you in your retirement. 866-780-7233. We'll be back right after this break.
No one even asked me if I took the milk money that time. I just got a 3-day vacation.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio.
Did you take it? Yeah, I took it.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistol.
Welcome back to Safe Money Radio. I'm Brad Pistol, a certified financial fiduciary and a safe money retirement specialist. Okay, Kevin, 2 more segments. I want to talk about, kind of where the show began. You started talking with me. You read a couple of books back a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm. You decided to purchase some annuities. Mm-hmm. I now own 7. I bought 2 more in January of 2024. And people are like, why do you own 7 annuities? Well, it's the same reason you own 4, right? There's different purposes for them.
I only own 4 because I can't own 6. But I'm working on that.
But you might buy a couple more.
That's right.
So there's a reason why. When you understand the power, how they work, some of mine have income riders, some of them don't. There would be growth focused, but let's talk about this, because there's a picture, and I got to get out of the way here. Which way? Get out of the way. If you're watching, there's a swan behind me, and there's a great story behind this. One day I get this package at the office, and it comes in, and I'm like, well, I didn't order anything. I wonder what this is. And the wrapping on it was very, very different. I thought, well, I don't think this is from Amazon. So I was careful when I opened it, because I thought, well, it's thin. There's got to be a note in there or something. And so we very carefully opened it. I used my knife, and Lisa and Hunter came in, and I'm like, who is this from? So we cut it open, very careful, no note inside. There was no return address. It was shipped from New York, I think, New York City. And I thought, a great mystery. This beautiful swan, which normally hangs in my own office. It's behind me. If anyone ever does a Zoom with me, the swan is behind me. And for me, personally, I wrote about this in my books. SWAN stands for Sleep Well at Night. Whenever it comes to annuities and guaranteed lifetime income planning, you don't have to have all the pressures and the stress of, well, will the market go up today or down today? I mean, like what happened in 2022? I always say if you retired on December 31st of 2021 and you were about to start your retirement and you left all your money in a brokerage account, 2022 was not a fun year. And I know there are people listening who did this, and you're thinking, I should have bought an annuity. Should have had some guarantees in there, because the market dropped, 7th worst year in the history of the market. It dropped like 25%. And if you did what a lot of people did, you leverage that with stocks and bonds. It's supposed to be like a teeter-totter, right? When the stocks do well, the bonds maybe not, and the reverse. Well, in 2022, they were both terrible.
Which I correct me if you know and I'm wrong, but I think that what occurred in 2022 with the bonds and stocks both plummeting simultaneously, that's only the 3rd time in history that's ever happened. And it was
the worst year for bonds. Yes. That's correct. Only the 3rd time in the worst year for bonds when it was down like the stocks were. More than 30% for some bond funds.
Yep.
So I want to talk about this for a minute. Why did you choose to purchase the annuities when you did? Right, you were going into your retirement. Why do you now own annuities?
Folks, when you look into and study and educate yourself on investments, you're going to come across very, very commonly people talk about asset allocation or ratios, X% stock, X% bonds. And traditionally, the younger you are, the higher the amount of equities. For example, if you're in your 20s and 30s, 100% equities is totally acceptable and recommended, actually. But when you get in your late 40s, early 50s, 60s, now you're going to want to have some bonds to offset the stocks just for balance. One of the most commonly used ratios is 60-40.
Right.
60-40. Right. Well, I've been around long enough, and I knew Wade Fallon, Michael Finca, and these other guys they're academics. Okay, I like to tease them, telling them they've never had a real job because they've always been in academics. But I had a real job for 40 some years prior to coming. I was in insurance and financial services my entire life before I started teaching it, and I wanted to follow my own instruction to my students. I like the 60-40 idea, but what I did was 100% of my portfolio outside of my annuities is in equities. I won't name, there's 2 of them. I won't name them, but I have all of my money are in 2 indexed funds. That's my equity. That's the 60%.
Yeah.
My annuities are the 40% of bonds. Why? It's, Kevin, annuities is not a bond. No, it isn't, but it operates in the same manner, because what are bonds for? Income.
Right.
They're for income. And what's the difference between an annuity and a bond? Income. One's guaranteed, the other one isn't.
Right.
So I decided I'm going into retirement.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a paycheck anymore. I'm going to make sure that I've got guaranteed money here. That's my bond portfolio.
Yeah.
Funded with annuities. And then I have my equity portfolio. This is what my kids are going to get. This is what where the growth is going to be. The annuities I bought, and Brad knows this, the annuities I bought are all deferred right now. Every year that they sit and grow, they grow by 8.25%.
Guaranteed roll up.
Guaranteed. If I wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years,
right.
In my mind, I've got it figured out. I'm going to start one of them in 3 years. I'm going to start another one in 6 years, and I'm going to start the last 2 in 9 years. So why? It's going to defeat inflation,
right?
Because I have new money coming every so often, right? But to me, the annuities basically are, as I'll repeat again, you want to have a broadly diversified portfolio. You want to have stocks, you want to have bonds, or better, you want to have equities and you want to have income. I've simply chosen to taken the income portion of my portfolio, guarantee them with annuities instead of taking the risk of bonds having another 2022.
I've had Wade Fowle on the show several times, and he's written articles, so has Michael Finca, that have said, hey, it used to be the 60-40 stocks and bonds. Now it's stocks and annuities, and here's why. Not that we're downplaying bonds, but it's because of the guaranteed and the sleeping well at night and the unknowns of what can happen in the market. So I'll say this.
If you're not a risk-averse person, is it not true that you could theoretically be better off in bonds and stocks? But here's my point. When you're in retirement and you don't have checks coming in anymore, if you're one of those people that likes to roll the dice.
Yeah.
Don't buy annuities.
Yeah.
You know, knock yourself out. But if you're
Swing
a
for
person,
it.
yeah, that's right, swing for the fences.
Yeah.
But if you're a person who wants the guaranteed safe money, that's what annuities are for. We don't say everybody should have them, but I have always told all of my students, you don't have to sell an annuity.
Yeah.
But you have to tell your clients about them so they can make the choice whether or not they want an annuity or not. That's
100%.
That's
No, and that's it's ironic. We're so much like that's exactly what I was about to say. I was going to say, if you're the kind of person that it doesn't bother you at all, you can sleep all night long when the market's going through these big swings up and down, your portfolio's taking 20% dips up and down, then that's fine. But I will say this. Make sure your spouse is okay with that because I do know this. I interview a lot of people. We give, Dr. Wade Fowle, Dr. Alex Margia, we use their software with our clients all the time, the RISA, the Retirement Income Style Awareness. And whenever we have husband and wife, I say, look, I want you both to take it. Let's find out where you are and where you are, and then let's try to marry those together. And I can almost guarantee you, not all the time, but from the female standpoint, 99% of the time, number one is safety and number two is income. They want to know if he kicks the bucket, which, sorry guys, we're older and we die first. That's the rule of thumb. Not always, but normally. If he kicks the bucket, and here's the things you don't think about. Hey, Brad, we're great right now. We've got plenty of income. Yeah, but you have a pension. Does that pass on to your spouse? Oh, no, but we have a great income. Yeah, but when you die, you're going to lose that pension and one of the two Social Securities.
Yep.
So you better hope that what's left is guaranteed to keep those paychecks coming in.
I coined something with my students over the years when I teach about Social Security and Medicare and annuities. And the thing is this, I call it the trifecta of grief.
Okay.
Think about this, folks. You're married, you have a spouse. You guys have been together for a long time. My wife and I are celebrating 50 years, June the 23rd. So it's coming up next month.
Congratulations.
And here's the thing. I call it the trifecta of grief. Number one, you've just lost your life partner. Number two, the IRS is going to send you a note. Now you get to pay taxes as a single person. Okay. And number three, the Social Security checks, you were getting two. Now you're only going to get one. So another advantage of annuities, all the annuities that I purchased are joint life annuities. So when I leave, the checks keep coming. As long as one of us is alive, the checks keep coming. So
those of you know that watch the show, my dad passed away almost 2 years ago. My mom still gets the annuity checks every single week, every single month. It's never going to stop as long as she lives. So if you want to know more about this, we got one segment left. Just call us 866-780-7233. My book, Bulletproof, the Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan, talks about this. So come back with us for one more segment, 866-780-7233.
Most important thing in business is honesty, integrity, hard work, family, never forgetting where we came from.
You're listening to Safe Money Radio. Now back to more Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistol.
Welcome back to Safe Money Radio. I'm Brad Pistol, a certified financial fiduciary and a safe money retirement specialist. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We're going to wrap up here pretty quickly. I know this, you emailed me a few weeks ago, and of course you're coming to town. I'm so excited about that. But you said, hey, I want to talk to you about MYGAs. Now, what in the world's a MYGA? Well, I use that term a lot. So do you. And people are like, a MYGA? What's a MYGA? Well, it's basically an insurance company's version of a CD, only it's tax deferred. You don't get a 1099 on it. That stands for multi-year guaranteed annuity. And right now they're paying somewhere between 5 and 6%, depending on the company and what state you live in.
In a year. Yeah. The number of years.
That's right. Yep. Whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, you can even get a 10-year MYGA. Some people here just recently, I'm one of the ones that missed out on it. You take care of everybody else first, but there was a 6% MYGA offered for 10 years. I knew I wanted to do it. I wanted to put at least $100,000 into it. I was so busy working on everyone else that I came in on a Monday morning to write it.
And the rate dropped.
The deadline was on Friday, and I missed it. And I called and begged and pleaded, and they wouldn't let me do it. It didn't matter how much I produced. But I'm just saying 6% for 10 years. Wow. But in your own retirement income plan, you already own some fixed index deferred annuities with income riders. Why would you consider a MYGA? Talk about maybe how a MIGA works while you're thinking about it, and also the importance of buckets, a bucket strategy in retirement.
Like Brad said, folks, multi-year guaranteed annuities. You can buy them for 2, 3, 4, up to 10 years. Matter of fact, there are some sources where you can get them longer than that. But for most folks, it's going to be between 2 and 10. What do you do? Well, you never know where the market is. Market's up, market's down. Is this a good time to buy? Is it not a good time to buy? You can forget all that. If you buy 1, 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, you space them out. You've heard of the bond ladder where you buy bonds to come due every year. Well, you can buy multi-year guaranteed annuities as well, or CDs. Well, the difference, as Brad said, the insurance company's product is deferred. There's no 1099, there's no taxes until you get your money back, until it pays out. Okay. Right. So my theory was I wanted to put additional funds into annuities. I wanted to put another 150,000, but I don't want to do it in one annuity. I wanted to do 50,000 for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years. Why? It will defeat inflation. So I put in the $25,000 a year. 2 years from now, that one matures. I get the interest on the $25,000 plus I get my $25,000 back.
Right.
Now, 2 years, a year after that, 2 years after that, I'm going to get another $25,000 plus all the interest. Now, I don't have to take the $25,000.
Right.
If the market is doing, if annuities are still paying strong amounts, I could simply roll that MIGA over.
Has a renewal rate, just like a CD of like 10 days, right?
No income tax penalty. No, it just stays invested. But if you need liquidity, say a year or 2 from now, even though we have a newer home, something goes wrong. I need a new air conditioner. Right. Well, guess what? You can buy a lot of air conditioner for $25,000. Right. And by the way, I just happen to have $25,000 coming in this year. So if you think about taking all of your money and laying it on the table, putting it on the table in front of you. When you buy a MIGA, you're not spending the money. You're simply moving it from this pile over to this pile. It's still your table and you still own it all.
Very good.
But it's earning you interest at a better rate than is normally available either in the market through a guaranteed unit trust type payment or in a regular bank CD.
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there anything negative about them? Well, you could say, in MIGAs, like all annuities are only as good as the company from whom you buy them.
Absolutely.
Because there's no FDIC insurance, right? But I put it this way, folks. When New York Life, Mass Mutual, American Equity, when these companies go under, you're going to be looking for ammo and food, not for return on your investments.
If they go down, the whole world's in trouble.
But again, we are literally, Brad is telling you the truth. He has been doing research for me to find out, where's the best way to deploy 150, what should I buy, which company should we use? Because again, I have all the academic knowledge in the world, but I don't carry licenses anymore, and I'm not licensed with any insurance companies, so I can't just call them up and say, hey, send me one. No, I have to use a trusted advisor, and he's my trusted advisor.
Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that's a lot of information. And while we are in this last segment, my stomach growled, and that means Lambert's is coming up soon for us.
You asked me to mention something else, and I forgot about adding it. Let me add it back now. When you make the decision to buy these MIGAs, if you do, or any other type of annuity, remember, you have to decide what bucket of money you're going to take it from.
Absolutely.
So the MIGAs that I'm referring to, not only do I get the $25,000 every other year or every 2 years, however I set them up, but the money is going to be coming back to me income tax free because it's going to be funded with Roth dollars. Now, I could fund them with an annuity or with a brokerage account and get that exclusion ratio.
Right.
Or I could use traditional IRA money, but then I'm deferring and I'm going to have to pay higher taxes down the road. So I'm focusing right now on spending additional Roth dollars so that I can fund these MIGAs to produce tax-free income over the next 10 years, taking me from 73 to 83. And the Lord willing, I'll make it to 93. But the last 10 years, I got that covered.
Right. And that's why I will say this all the time on the show. I'm glad he brought up that last point. You get to choose what type of dollars you put into these accounts. That's why I'll say in a recent show was the number one thing that will separate you from the retirement of your dreams is taxes.
Yep.
Ed Slott says it all the time. So it's not what you make, it's what you keep that counts. So if you can stagger buckets or ladders of money with tax-free dollars from a Roth, even better, because you know you're outpacing inflation, and when you get to take it out, it's all yours.
Yep.
Friends, if you want to know more about how to build your own customized retirement income plan, we are the source. Hunter and I are both retirement income certified professionals. We will send you a copy of the Retirement Income Style Awareness Survey. We pay for it for you to take it free. And this will show us what quadrants you fall into. Maybe it's time segmentation, it's protected income.
Safety first.
Safety first bucket. Both of us fell into the
Safety
exact
first.
same quadrant. That's why we own a lot of annuities. But you may be total return. You may be a bucket strategy person. But the nice thing is, a disinterested third party, two peoples with their doctorates, a doctorate in the economy, and then also in psychology. You have those two, Dr. Alex Marguilla, Dr. Wade Pfau, who have put this together. We'll send it to you free of charge.
And I will tell you, folks, I can again testify on behalf of that, because I was actually in the beta testing group for the RISA, and I've never seen a more accurate description of who I am financially than this report was. It was like I wrote it.
And you took it 3 times.
I took it 3 times, and every single time it's the same. It comes in quadrants,
right?
But each quadrant has its own quadrant.
It does.
And the only change was I was in the lower left quadrant, safety first. I was really, really safety first down in the bottom. And now I got a little bit better because I'm funded into retirement. Now I just went up a little bit to the top right part of the lower left quadrant.
Because
so I'm still safety first.
You have the guarantee.
But I have sleep well at night. That's right.
Yep. That's so good. I know whenever I first met him, I said, hey, I've got to send this to you so we can find out where you fall. And he's like, oh, I've already taken it. I was in the beta group. So, so again, your educators, your experts know about the science behind income planning. If you want a free financial consultation, if you want a copy of our book or our Safe Money Kit, just call us. We will absolutely send it to you free. 866-780-SAFE, 866-780-7233. Kevin, thank you so much for being here in person to join us on the show. Folks,
this is not my program, but I'm going to end my portion with the same way I used to end every class I taught at the American College. I always told my students, God loves you, so do I. Have a wonderful day.
Have a fantastic day. Well, I'm about out of time, and I would like to thank you for listening to Safe Money Radio. If you're serious about your financial future, give me a call, and together we'll get your retirement savings on the fast track to accumulation while reducing exposure to market losses. Thanks for listening, and until next time at the same time, I'm Brad Pistole, reminding you to stay safe so you can step into a secure future.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
You've been listening to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole. Find out how to contractually guarantee that your hard-earned money is safe while avoiding market loss so you can have the retirement that you deserve. Call Brad Pistole now for your complimentary Safe Money book and Safe Money information kit at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Surrender charges apply to base contracts. Optional lifetime income benefit riders are used to calculate lifetime payments only and are not available for cash surrender or in a death benefit unless specified in the annuity contract. Fees may apply. Guarantees are based on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insurance company. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified and licensed professional. Obviously, by calling us now, you are just taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. It's important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Rates and returns mentioned on this program are subject to change without notice.